All right, I think we can start. Robert, maybe because you joined first and now we can see all these admissions, you can put yourself on mute so that it's not struggling us for the first couple of minutes.
Fine.
Let me welcome everyone on today's webinar workshop around the global process ownership, around the critical step in the developing of the business services models with the help of process owners, whether global or group process owners in today's world. We have been, before I go to that, we are pleasured to host you guys. We have today more than 50 people. So just with, if we can very kindly request you to put yourself on mute and also cameras off, except obviously the speakers or the guests of today. We have opened up the chat box. I will be facilitating this webinar, so we have opened the chat box. If you put your questions over there, I'll try to address them to the group over here over the course of this webinar. And this webinar also will be recorded, or is already being recorded. So not only in the Teams facility or facilities you can find it back, but we'll also publish this, obviously, if the quality of our webinar allows us to do so. And still, the Q&A session will be played. So no matter, I will try to address it to the speakers over the time of that meeting. Still, some unanswered questions will be addressed over the chat or over the Q&A session. Hope you will enjoy it. And let me start with then with the introductions. Obviously, we have a pleasure to host you as with a cooperation of ABSL, but as a adaptive group. Many of you have been working with us before. For those who have not, we are the boutique advisory company looking at strategic support for the GBS and GPO setup, transformation management across implementation of your transformation programs, and then supporting service delivery, service delivery functions, service delivery enhancements. Over the 5 years of our history, we have been building the group of 50 professionals. We have been building the client base of 60 plus global GBS clients with over 150 projects delivered across transitions, transformations, and optimizations and automations of the processes. And today we are represented, I will start from myself, Krystian, Bestry, the CEO, and I will play the facilitator role today. And I have with me today two senior advisors, Aleksandra, Krajewska, who have been working with the BPO market for the last several years, particularly on setup of GBS and GPO and process delivery functions in the centralized model, and Robert Godziszewski, who on the other hand is a practitioner in implementation of the GPO functions across our clients in our GBS as a service and GPO as a service model. And we are today, we have together with us Hajdas, the global process owner from AVON, and Jacek, Duda, group process owner from Eurofins. Gentlemen, Alex, maybe you can introduce yourself a bit more.
First of all, thank you for the invitation again. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Aleksander Hajdas, Alex for short. I'm the global process owner between procurement and payment in AVON. Previously, I worked in Koty as well. I'm Polish, although I spent a few years working abroad in a variety of different GBS roles. And I'm very happy to be with you today.
Thanks, Alex. Jacek?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jacek Duda. I'm a global process owner responsible for R2R area in Eurofins, and I joined the company May 2019. And overall, I have experience of 13 years in actually different operational functions, actually from the accountant to the service delivery manager. And I'm also having experience in an area of transition and project management. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will immediately turn into first subject. We will be addressing today a lot of elements considering the role of GPO, the value that the function can bring to the organization, as well as the challenges today and for tomorrow. But I'd like to start with a bit brief of your perspective, gentlemen. Why GPO? Why your organization as such needs GPO or had defined the need for the GPO in the past? Alex, maybe we'll start from the same circle.
I think that similarly as in AVON, when there is a problem, I think that there is a problem or some big challenge, and I don't know, high cost of processing. There is some big integration that is coming, lack of alignment between different functions, or I don't know, inefficient processes. As we see the need for transformation. I think that at that point, a lot of organizations, or at least within GBS area, they realize that we are missing a certain role that will be able to facilitate, create the vision, facilitate the communications, and make sure that we have this this end goal, how we want to mature in our glide path, in our processes. So at least my experience was that it very often the role was created because there was this lack of solution for a problem that the company had at that time. And I have to even say myself that I also started many years ago in GBS, and I also had to mature in the role of GPO. So I think that we will be also talking about this today a lot. But even myself, I saw that from a more tactical role to a more strategical, still maintaining some of the other activities. So yes, I think it's all comes up to a challenge that the company has, and the lack of this visionary, forward-thinking role that can help the company shape how to go forward for a process.
Thank you, Alex. Jacek, your views?
Yeah, I think in overall the same as Alex mentioned. Eurofins is actually still quite a young company, but very dynamic, let's say. So we have, I think, over 1,000 entities within different continents. We have shared service center, we have local service centers. So there is definitely a need to design and develop the standard process to make sure that we have clear metrics, we have clear internal controls, and definitely we are in the transition phase. We are not only thinking about the SSC, but also thinking about the transition and transformation of different processes. For example, fast close. So now we have changed the overall process of the closing. So it is very dynamic, and definitely there is a need to coordinate, to be a person who will, let's say, will be a bridge between different functions, who will have communication skills to make sure that everyone are aligned. And of course, we are always looking for the process improvements, for efficiency, to reduce the costs. On the other side, we also need to support different teams in the let's say regular activities, maybe not on the detail level, but still to provide them the strategy, where we should go, what is the goal of the company. So I think in the principle we have summarizing, we have three main areas. So first of all, GPO is needed to define the standard process, to support the transformation, and also support the different teams involved in the process. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. It's quite a comprehensive one from what I heard, transforming the vision into tactical, let's say, initiatives and supporting the solutions that Alex brought forward towards very concrete standardization, transformation, and actually even supporting operations in their improvement or initiating improvement activities. I brought forward the two statements of Mr. Simon Sinek. One is how can you be the best in the game, which has no finish line, and the other one, the goal is not to be perfect by the end. The goal is to be perfect by tomorrow. It all brings us to the fact that actually the organizations that are foreseeing the change or are looking for the change, no matter whether it's organizational or process or functional change, this is usually why they need the momentum or the moment why they need GPO role to go through that transformation journey, to go through that change journey. Just to summarize, if we look at the process transformation, whether we do it with GBS organization, I suppose many of us or majority of us over here are from that or are linked to that model, obviously. But no matter whether you do it with GBS organization or not, obviously the initial scope of the process transformation is somehow the scope of the GPO. So it is whether this is standardization of the process, harmonization of the scope of the services, or harmonization of the details of the activities. Whether this is looking for automations or looking for different benchmarks and best-in-class initiatives, these are in the core role of change, and then these are in the core role of GPO. Looking closer to the GBS, though, we have in our adaptive methodologies, we have defined actually 4 levels of the GBS, of the maturity of the GBS as such from the strategic perspective of the organization. Obviously, organizations are looking at the cost, labor arbitrage, consolidation, effect of scale. They are looking at the quality at the next level. So not only process execution, but also process compliance. Quality understood as also client focus, as process standardization, documentation and knowledge management, or process expertise. Once we go deeper or we go into more strategic role that GBS can play, this would be driving organizational changes, and this would be also focusing on efficiencies beyond own operations, starting from process performance, monitoring, effective controls, and so on. And actually, also the fourth reason why organizations are looking at GBS is quality and agility of data and agility of organizations, where you can lead the business transformation as GBS. Now, next slide, Robert, I think, yes. Now, GPO is, in our view, helping organizations, Alex also started with, to build a vision of the transformation, while GBS is somehow the execution angle, or initially was the execution angle of that transformation from ops or back office perspective. If we look at GBS closer, and this perspective of strategic role, assist, guard, drive, and lead, we can see that any of the GBS is usually, GBS today, has been usually considered as shared services or shared services BPO model beforehand, and had some internal coordinated in-house practices also way beforehand. What is the aim, though, is to move from shared service model just purely on efficiency, with efficiency and effectiveness focus, into more like service delivery, a service approach focus, which is obvious in GBS, closing the gaps of the scope and effort across geographies, and maximizing the value from the process expertise. Although the future is more integrated, is more towards integration of across the process domains, looking at the fact that we have defined at the GBS level of maturity already SLAs, measuring the inputs and outputs of the process. The integrated business services is a model that the companies are looking to also interlink or bridge between the processes that are being delivered out of that model. And now the GPO itself, you cannot consider to have the process end-to-end managed, not even more to have the integration challenge between the processes without the process owner. And we obviously can define this then as a typical owner, but also end-to-end, but also the bridge between geographies, between the functional lines, and between different stakeholders of the transformation. Now, looking at those challenges, looking at those perspectives from the business that requires constant change and constant adoption of the best-in-class practices, and the GBS that can help to build that and that can gradually absorb that initiatives and absorb or take over the leadership role in driving the changes. What is the right profile of the GPO and how it has been positioned in your organizations? Maybe I will traverse it, Jacek, first to give your perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe starting with the right profile, definitely this person needs to have appropriate experience in the area. So, for example, in the R2R in my case, and definitely soft skills are also very crucial. So the person should be organized well, communicative, should have an appropriate experience in the people management, in the project management, change management, and also needs to think strategically. So that is, I think, really crucial in this role. But thinking about the position with the organization, I think should be independent role. So independent from thinking about my current company, so independent from SSC, independent from the local teams, independent from the business, because definitely it is much easier to make sure that the standard is followed. So from my perspective, it should be the role within in my case, this is the global finance team. Of course, depending on the country or depending on the company, it can be GBS. So from that perspective, this is the right position.
Alex, your views?
I fully agree with Jacek. What I would add, yes, I mean, it has to be a sort of a person that is able to think strategically, but at the same time, unfortunately or fortunately, from time to time is able to go into a certain level of detail to be able to understand what is the right solution for the company. So I think that's also one of the challenges, right? That we as GPOs, we very often have to jump from one conversations when we discuss something very high level and strategic with our CPO, CFOs, and then we have to jump into a I don't know, some solution identification sessions or design sessions where we discuss in a very detailed some of the process maps and how the process should look like. So I think that the strategic thinker is very important, but at the same time this agility to be able to navigate in those different conversations. So yes, definitely the analytical understanding of the processes. And I think also this experience and being able to infuse those best practices is also very important. But what I was particularly in AVON, the problem that we always had, and I think that a lot of us, wherever we come from functions, or at least around the Procure-to-Pay area, a lot of us come because shared services, or most of the shared services originally started in finance, right? So for instance, think about Procure-to-Pay process. Myself, for instance, coming from finance, it's always sort of you have to push yourself into this procurement area as well to get the right positioning and understanding. And I think that for me specifically, a GPO role is sort of an influencer, right? So I have to be able to influence the stakeholders. I have to be able to influence the markets, or what is the vision, how we should progress further. So I have to say that for the last 2.5, 3 years in AVON, it's a lot of influence again, selling your ideas and trying to plow through the roadblocks.
Right. Let me explore a bit on this. What are your common stakeholders today? Maybe Alex, a bit follow up on your.
So what within the Procure-to-Pay era, that's obviously between the CPO and CFO organization that we sort of have to navigate. So how to merge both of those functions, which very often have quite different targets and what they would like to do and how they envision the process. So I think that's at least for AVON, that was I would say probably key of my role is to make sure that those two functions work towards, at least within this P2P process, that we work towards one goal. So yes, it's between the CPO function with all of the procurement heads in the markets. On the other hand is all of the finance functions, and at the end, obviously for procurement, for GPO and P2P, it's also the markets, right? Because the scope of our stakeholders for P2P is very wide. We have external vendors, we have internal stakeholders, so it's very wide. But it's principally, making sure that the procurement and the finance teams are working together as I would envision that they should.
Right. You mentioned the different stakeholders. I also recognize that, especially, that's why a bit question to Jacek, because if you have different business lines, different functions, at the same time, a bit operational angle maybe in GBS, but certainly in geographies, so another group of stakeholders. Looking at your angle R2R, Jacek, what are your stakeholders today? What type or level of challenges, not yet on the challenges in the GPO, but with defining that group of interest you can see at your side?
Yeah, so definitely when defining the strategy and vision, the global finance team is crucial. So CFO, senior finance director, because this is how this is organized. We are organized by the continents, but also by the functions, different functions within the sub process, and also of course the business representatives. Their voice is always crucial when discussing the vision, the strategy. And then, of course, we should lift all those strategical topics to the local teams. So definitely within the governance, we have all those finance directors within the countries and heads of different functions within the organization. So that is in overall the governance.
Mm-hmm. Right. Aleksandra, if I can ask you to bring us the theoretical methodological element into this discussion.
Yes, thank you, Krystian, with pleasure. So if you could go to the next slides, because actually we already conducting this session a couple of times. So this is the second time that we had the pleasure to tackle this topic. So a few months ago, we actually launched a survey and exclusively to explore more on GPO role. And we asked our global process owners how it is actually in their organization. So from where they originally come. And what we see, it's quite surprisingly, because it's like that they are coming, the majority is coming from the SSC organization, so not really from the business, rather than not really from external consultancy. And second question, which can be also quite interesting for you, the result of this survey, is how GPO is positioned. Either it is close to the business or it is close to the process. And we see definitely the tendency that close to the process, that's the practical part that is being used by the majority of the organization. So quite a lot of things have been already touched by our guests. Thank you so much for that. It sounds very much like complex, right? So GPO role itself is very demanding. So let's maybe a little bit like try to simplify for the purpose of this discussion. So let's put it a little bit like a structure. So I think Alex mentioned that it's definitely strategic level. So we just see the definite need to be positioned on a global level. We see tactical level and delivery level. For the strategic part, it's mainly end-to-end process management framework. This is the benchmark, of course, transformation roadmap design, but also the adherence to corporate standards. On tactical level, this is more like regional business division level. This is the bridge, actually the GPO function plays the role of the bridge between business division, countries, units, and corporate functions. This is the process documentation, execution, and control, and transformation initiatives that align change management programs. And of course, delivery level, it's not that GPO should be involved in day-to-day issues, operational issues. It's more like that such function is anchoring whether it is in line with the end-to-end process framework. And also, it should be like that bottom-up initiatives should be actually, of course, properly addressed and also touched on the higher level. Right. Not go to the next slide, Robert. Thank you so much. We see a little bit like a visualization. This is our, of course, proposal, how we see that. So still having in mind that those three levels, we believe that the presence is absolutely crucial. So on strategic, where actually this function is in regular contact with both management, but also on tactical level, where we see a very close cooperation with Center of Excellence, where mainly we have the process design, but also with local teams. And on delivery level, we have also hubs, right? But still the improvements, right? So the whole continuous improvement process should take place. And if we could go to the next slide, we have a very supporting table over there, where because we believe that, of course, because this is such a demanding role, absolutely, that should be internally established reporting structure. So we have the global process owner, which is the head, right, the main owner. But we also have on tactical level, we have process owner and implementation officer on delivery level. And that ensures also the proper effective communication flow, where we have the mapping of the right stakeholders. So who with whom should communicate and regularly have meetings and discussions. Right, so yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you all. I think it's a kind of comprehensive view, but also not necessarily being the one and only right one, but it's comprehensive from the perspective that it touches those three levels. And obviously in practice, you don't have to put three different people physically in that roles. It can be blocked partially in the GBS on the delivery side as a just the buffer of the function within the GBS. It can be on tactical level as a person, and then still it brings just the view that this function requires probably three levels of attention, or attention at three different levels. That would and then the stakeholder group is completely different, and it's probably organization of such activities across those three levels is easier if you can think about the team of GPO rather than just the individual GPO. But then, looking at the function of itself, what is the then practically? I started with this question already beforehand, but what is practically the GPO focus today for your organizations, and how do you organize it in terms of, how do you organize it with or without GBS, with or without IT, in terms of the steering groups and in terms of the actually focus areas? Alex, if I can ask you.
So the GPO, as we are discussing, right? We are overall accountable for the performance of our towers, right? So I think that what is important is, at least for me now in AVON, is implementing our strategy. So and building those processes really end to end between Procure-to-Pay, so really strengthening those efficiencies that we have on end-to-end process. And how we arrived to that is we have identified that we have quite a lot of issues around our paid on time, right? So we really started from the data, trying to build up our key areas of problems. So we were discussing it with our business stakeholders, with the procurement, finance. So we went through a whole blueprinting exercise to understand where are those key challenges within our processes, and then we sort of bucketed those areas of problems, and then started to assign owners, and it's owners outside of the GBS functions, right? So our GBS is mostly procurement, finance. Obviously, we have order to cash, record to report, and P2P. But we went outside, so to find the right owners of those key root causes of key issues that we have around our paid on time was in HR, was in the markets, was the technology. So we really went, from data up to find the right way, and on top of this, we have created our strategy, which is pretty much between people, technology, and processes, right? So because one of the piece of our failures was the technology, and I think that probably a lot of us can relate to that. So we have a certain vision that we already discussed with our IT. We have our IT board where we discuss all of our ideas and where we want to invest. But at the same time, our big problems are around processes. So how do we make it more efficient? How do we, as I mentioned, strengthen this end-to-end between Procure-to-Pay? But to be very honest, I think that one of the key points around the strategy that we have created is around people. So obviously, if we look at accounts payable and our overall score, paying on time to our vendors, getting their satisfaction in cooperation with us, we see that there is a lot of problems in the understanding of each participant's role in the process itself, right? They have to adhere to the process, that they have to, approve the POs on time, provide the goods receipt, the quality of purchase order has to be there for us to be able to do the matching. So within the strategy itself, we really focused on the people. How do we drive? How do we enable them to better participate, so that at the end to end, we can drive those efficiencies. So that's my focus, between the IT processes, people, and that's how we organize ourselves today around the strategy.
All right, thank you very much, Jacek. If you want to add also around people, technology, and process, or you see the different angles?
Yes, definitely. This is all about the strategy and how to execute, actually. So, as mentioned already, we are still quite young company. This is still developing. We are still actually probably at the beginning of the transformation phase. So we are still working on the definition of the right end-to-end processes, thinking about the appropriate internal controls, about proper metrics to make sure that they are compliant. So I think this is organized quite well, I think, in the company, because for each and every process we have defined the key process document, and this is then followed by the more operational business process description. So now there is a lot of changes within the company. As I mentioned, the new strategy, new tools, new systems. So definitely now our role is to make sure that everything is working in connecting all those areas. So people, technology, and the process. So that is, I think, very important. Overall standardization, yes, we are now close to the Europe. So in Europe everything is working as it should be. I am not still sure that in the other continents it is well organized. So our focus is to make sure also that other continents are aligned to our strategy and our design processes. So in overall, the area of focus is definitely supporting this transformation. So as mentioned, new month-end closing process. So we are now closing within 4 days, not 6 as it was until the last year. Intercompany process, fixed assets. So definitely a lot of areas. Strategy we have defined. Now it's a matter of to make sure that this is executed and everything is working as it should be. I think, yeah, the process improvements, this is one more important area, but probably we are not far to start with the robots, with more advanced automation. So still, I think from the strategical point of view, we need to focus that the processes are harmonized, standardized, and then I think we can make the step forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. In the meantime, we have a couple of first questions from the audience, and I think it's worth to address at least part of it over here. Maybe Robert, if you can put a bit 2 slides back on this nice machinery with hub, COE, one more, with hub, COE, and the GPO, and yeah. Exactly that one, because we have the question, what is the role of the COE in the process design, which is a bit aside of here, but I would like to start, and maybe Alex or Jacek, if you have similar COEs in your organizations for AVON. I know that the whole Warsaw is considered as one big transformation group or transformers, so COE particularly in a couple of areas. But obviously in this model, as the question was raised, the COE is the execution angle also of the process changes, and then the role in the process design is actually working with the local teams who can look for the potential scope together with the BPO, also to be centralized or to be reorganized or to be placed into GBS. But COE role in the process design is actually making sure, at least that's my view, that you have the process technology and people element addressed from the process expertise perspective, meaning that you have the knowledge framework to execute certain process once it is designed to be re-engineered in some way. On the other hand, to make sure that the transition is getting prepared, because in some GBS organizations, COE is also playing the transition and transformation delivery function itself. Not sure whether you have similar experiences, Alex, Jacek. I'm not sure whether any of you would like to add here.
Yeah, so for us, as you mentioned, I mean, we, to be honest, as a GPO, I think that you cannot survive without the SMEs and the COE support, right? I mean, it's everything looks very nice on the slides when you have the strategy, the vision, but it's really translating that into the real process and what are the key pain points, feeding it back. What are the key areas what actually is possible, right? Because sometimes we can envision something that it's just there. It seems like it's just there to be taken. But then if you discuss it with the COE and you design the process itself, you will find that it's not as easy as it was from the beginning. So So yes, I mean, the close cooperations between the GPO and COE, I think it's critical to get the transformation moving. And for us in AVON, actually, it worked very well. So we have the COE within Warsaw, we have the people who have expertise in our processes and the technology are supporting us with the reporting piece, feeding all of the information. So yes, I think it's really critical to be successful as a GPO.
Yeah, we have one more question related to this from Magda Grosicka. How do you see cooperation between GPOs and transformation PMO? Is the transformation PMO, in your case at AVON, is more like in the delivery, still being GPO, or in the COE because they have way more resources and are organized in a way of a bit of professionals that can support this over there?
So we have our PMO office. So we organize ourselves around projects. So how we organize ourselves is that myself as the GPO for P2P, I am accountable for everything that happens across the tower, which does not necessarily mean that I'm physically responsible or project managing each of the transformational initiatives that we have within the tower. Which I think is working very well. So we can have owners around the projects for continuous improvements from the COE. We can have owners from even the business. As I mentioned, we have some projects from that market is leading, HR, because it all feeds on our process. So it's really myself. I'm the accountable for the tower. I am supported by the POM office, and then the whole transformation is happening under that. But it's different stakeholders that participate in making sure that we arrive at this vision that we have for P2P.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, okay.
Robert.
Thank you very much, guys, for those answers. Also, I think that it was really interesting to hear from you that you were looking not only in the transformational initiatives related to the processes, but you also touched quite severely the point of people and the strategy. And most of you know that profit and loss of each GBS organization or shared service center consists of 65 to 70% of the, let's say, people costs. So indeed, even the GPO having a look into the processes, the transformation, the strategy whatsoever, needs to look into the people area and take into consideration how his or her activities and responsibilities are touching this important area as well. Summarizing what usually GPO is focusing on and should focus, we would like to show you that in fact things are starting, we could say, from this what both Alex and Jacek mentioned, so the strategy, and this would be covered mainly in the overall scope definition. We are also looking into the itself of the process documentation and the whole knowledge management over there, the process performance management. So how successfully you are, for example, Alex, in meeting your payment on time target and whether your vendors are happy or not. Then from the process perspective, standardization and harmonization. Look into the control and compliance, which is quite close to this, what is being expected from the GBS on this more mature level, where the GBS is already looking into the being a guide of the policies and regulations in the organization. And last but not least, and very important one, look into the transformation and automation. And what I would like to do right now is to go through all those areas to show you how a GPO can impact, where the impact is, and what usually GPO should and is doing from his role perspective. So on the scope definition, looking into various trends and how exactly the scope should be defined in the organization, this is looking into both setting up a target operating model, where a GPO, depending on where this role started in the organization, sometimes GPO is being defined in the organization still even before any kind of centralization. And over there, this role has a really severe impact from the strategy perspective and the way how the initially we could say shared service center, or let's say less mature GBS will be even set up for particular company. Taking into consideration the whole mission, vision, and objectives of the organization, GPO is being then, let's say, to call it utilized or simply deeply involved in defining those crucial things like organizational governance of the GBS, and not only how the processes will be set up, how they will look like. What would be the technology infrastructure and why such infrastructure and how this might be changed in the future. And this would also both Alex and Jacek mentioned people and knowledge. So how the knowledge will be secured when we will be creating the shared service center and the GBS. The whole target operating model of the service delivery is being then translated and really connected, correlated with the scope, how it is being defined. What do we want to centralize? Where do we want to centralize it? Which areas we think that might be put into the centralized function, and which areas we are fully sure that should stay within the local country team or within the business responsibility and cannot be centralized at all. With this point of view from the GPO perspective, then it's easier to create the whole business case of the GBS organization. When the GBS organization is being created, you cannot put it into the good, efficient, and effective practice without having an effective governance model. So how the teams should simply cooperate between each other, and not to forget simply the point of view that if you are having a GBS or shared service center, you need to take a look into things as a one team, one company with one goal. So having an effective governance model will allow you, from the process perspective, from the organizational perspective, reach the company's targets and the strategy objectives which are being set. Those things, of course, cannot be taken into consideration without looking into what's going on the market. And this is quite important and crucial from the GPO perspective, not only look into what's going on in her organization and pillar of the process, but also to look into how other organizations are tackling the things, what kind of best-in-class things are currently in place, or trends which are being followed by most of the organizations. As already Krystian said on the previous slide with the words of Simon Sinek, the point is to be better tomorrow. So to be better tomorrow is always to look what can we do differently and how can we improve it. Moving to the next area, which is related to the process documentation, the GPO is looking into the whole structure and ownership of the processes, how they are being documented, and how the knowledge is being secured in the organization. It doesn't mean that the process owner should be fully responsible for updating and maintaining this documentation. Process owner is rather, from our perspective, responsible for ensuring that there is a process of knowledge management in the organization. And this starts first from having a proper documentation management of the policies, business process descriptions, the procedures, or as you can call them, work instructions. How do they look like? How they should be maintained? How frequently? Also, the whole knowledge management framework. So, like mentioned already, rather defining who should be responsible for doing the things related to maintenance of the knowledge, to avoid losing it and to avoid disruption from the GBS organization, which would then have a severe impact on the business itself. Then, if we are having those things set up, we will be looking into how to manage the process performance, how to ensure that our organization, even from the GBS standpoint, and not only from the GBS standpoint, is going forward, meeting the strategical initiatives, strategical targets, and objectives which are defined from the executive board and the management. So to have this in place, GPO is responsible for setting up the measurements, to have them in place for each process, for each pillar, for each area, and monitor together with the delivery teams whether they are being improved or not. And in case if particular measurement is providing you information that a process is not performing well, still comparing and doing the benchmarks from your organization versus the market trends, you can define that something might be done better. And then you can think about, okay, we can do better. So how, where, with what kind of tools, what can we do in order to have ourselves going towards a better, with the better process performance management and towards the best-in-class organization on the globe. Standardization and harmonization. So we cannot talk about being a process owner and having an impact and influence on better process management without looking into standardizing the things in the organization and harmonizing them, which then are being translated into, on one hand side, bottom-up process changes brought by the delivery teams, but also it's then easier to define the transformation initiatives which would be coming top-down, so from the process owner. And then GPO needs to think about how to apply the standardization and harmonization approach in his or her organization, which in fact is not an easy topic and not an easy area to take care of. As first, you need to think about how to build the standard, what kind of means you should take into consideration to put current practices of the organization in the proper framework, proper description and proper documentation to first create the standard, publish the standard, and then work with all the organizations across the world or across the whole scope of the GPO profile to ensure that organizations are in line and performing their activities in line with the standard. And this activity, removing the gaps on the process level, on the activity level, is the harmonization itself. To some extent, we heard voices that some of people might think that we have implemented SAP or one ERP, and thanks to this we have a standard. But it's not the case, in fact. You might have one ERP system in your organization, everyone is using the same transaction, but still within this transaction, the process flow looks differently, the activities are being done in a different manner, which doesn't mean that you are having a full standardization in place, not even to say harmonization. That's why going deeper into the processes and activities and ensuring that they are done exactly in the same way between the countries is really crucial of achieving proper effectiveness and efficiency in the process and the economy of scale, of course. Each process cannot be performed without ensuring that the outcome of this process is having a proper quality, and without verifying whether it's meeting respective regulatory things and looking into what kind of compliance needs to take place. So together with respective body in each organization, like internal control team, internal audit team, GPO is going through her processes and verifying in which place of the process there should be a control in place, how this control should be built, and how this control should be then effectively performed either by the delivery teams and later on verified by the internal audit team. Also is being later on translated into respective internal control documentation to verify whether your controls are effective or not, and whether you are ensuring that your organization will not face any kind of external audit issues or even more severe impact on the financial side. And things related to the transformation, automation, and robotics. So driving the transformation and automation approach. What I mentioned already from the process performance management, but not only there, benchmarking versus market trends, how can you transform and how you can automate. Looking into the process maturity assessments of the processes which are in your organization. Then also initiating the assessment from the automation perspective, which might be totally differently treated and utilized. Automation doesn't always mean that you need to have a robotics. You can also think about different platforms, or even basic visual, basic automation programmings in Excel, which will also improve the process performance. In this area, from one hand side, you need to first have a proper assessment of the maturity of your processes. So review your documentation, perform the assessment and interviews within your organization, talk to the people, verify how currently and exactly the processes and activities are being performed, and then on basis of this, build the recommendations list and automation initiatives for the future. What can be transformed with a process transformation, what can be fully automated with bringing technology in place. And thanks to this maturity assessment, you would be building a whole transformation and automation roadmap for your organization, which would be, on one hand side, a long-term vision for the future. What can you do within your process, which will impact on the strategy of the whole organization, and what is also being brought from the delivery teams, from the bottom-up initiatives, what you can utilize for the process efficiency and performance. So this is, we could say, an overview of what, in our opinion, GPO is taking care of and handling, and already what both Jacek and Alex started from the very beginning, and we could already hear over there that the scope of the responsibilities of a GPO is really wide and is really impacting on the global processes across the whole organization. Moving forward to the next question, Krystian.
Yes, even before this, I think we have, thank you, Robert, for very extensive or comprehensive view. Before even moving into this, looking at the questions we have from the audience, some of them are very specific. We would probably want to or try to address them individually, but the one that you mentioned a lot as an element of good scope or actually good practice of the GPO is related to the benchmarking, reviewing market trends, well, learning how the others are doing this, maybe not even without coming back. The question that I have that is also coming through the audience, so on one hand you are, how, maybe different, the question that I have is how often, how much intense you have in your approach to look for market trends, to look for benchmarks. We heard during a couple of other sessions, or also during the last session we had around the GPO, that some organizations, for some organizations, this is the only role or the main role of the GPO. Outside, look for the trends, look for the best practices, and then only align which one we apply or which one in our organization. At the same time, we have a question about the practical ways to convince the stakeholders for your ideas, and then that brings me to the one very critical or one very straightforward statements that can be heard from the stakeholders. Show me the value, or even more, show me the money. So from one end, how much, and Jacek, maybe you can start, how much you look outside, how much focus is there. On the other hand, if you spot something, what elements you most often try to use to convince your stakeholders from different angles to for the buy-in for such ideas?
Yeah, so first of all, always the business case is crucial. So the figures are always usually on the first place, yes, but we should look on the not only short-term but also long-term benefits that we can achieve. Also thinking about the position of the company, about let's say internal benefits within the company, related to the improvement. So definitely this is not only about the figures. I'm always trying to look on the overall, let's say, background of the solution, impact not only on my area, but also overall area of the company. Not only thinking about the finance, but definitely thinking always about the business, because we are supporting the business, yes. So not only thinking about my area of responsibility, but very wide, not only think about the short-term benefits, but definitely the long-term. So sometimes it can be that figure is not impressive, but if we take the bigger picture, then we will see that the impact on the organization is much more wide. So always trying to provide the comprehensive analysis for my ideas and projects which I am trying to, let's say, sell to the audience.
Alex, your views?
I think it really depends on who you're speaking to, right? I mean, what we is a very extensive stakeholder management mapping. So we try to understand where we should influence which person, how much we should interact with each of the stakeholders. How do we interact with them today? What is important to them? How they influence our decisions. So I think it's really comes down to who you're talking. I fully agree with Jacek. I mean, when you try to get something over the line, it's very often comes down to whether you have a good ROI or not. However, in some cases, what we try to do is to arrive at a certain understanding with our stakeholders of what is it that we want to change or where we want to arrive. We take them on a journey, right? So very often we would start, showcasing quite often benchmarks, right? How do we perform against benchmarks? Although benchmarking is quite expensive sometimes, so it's on a limited scope. But we try to show them how our process is underperforming. We show what can be done to arrive at there is this solution that could fix a lot of the pain points that we have in the process. And to be very honest, I mean, even myself, I failed a lot of times getting something across, even though it was a great idea that we should implement because it will bring XYZ benefits also outside of financial benefits. But I would hear it's not the time, we don't have the funds, maybe other day, we have a different priorities today. But I think it's our role to keep bringing forward those discussions and yes, bringing those ideas from outside, how we can implement and feeding it and just pushing and trying to get our stakeholders to align to the certain idea and the vision that we have that we should. But yes, there is definitely a lot of failures on this road, but I think that as GPOs, it's really our role to keep bringing those ideas into the organization.
Yeah, thank you very much. If we consider indeed, or if we talk about the money, I still remember the typical case where the IT, especially infrastructure guys, are coming to me and asking for some renewal of the servers and telling me that this would cost us 2 million. And then obviously the initial discussion about the investment you need to take, not about the value you would have. But then I also remember that this is, sent off as an idea, and 2 weeks later they are coming back and saying, yeah, you have a brilliant IT, we found the solution, 300,000. And that is immediately accepted. So this is one of the tricks that everyone could recognize, I suppose, especially if we consider IT investments in the various ways of of approaching your stakeholders, asking for the money. But really, indeed, the question is whether you mentioned, I think, Alex, that the benchmarks are quite expensive, or Jacek, sorry, that the benchmarks are quite expensive. So is really the budget is a key challenge of today, is getting those benchmarks, because they are expensive. I suppose everyone is looking, well, for the webinars like this, or for different injection of or source injection of the innovation ideas for yourself on the various conferences and good practice seminars. But then, what are the other challenges except for this, best good practices that you consider the most critical for today, or probably the most priority for tomorrow? Jacek?
Yeah, thinking about the benchmark, of course, as you mentioned, Krystian, this is always worth it to consider. But of course, when thinking about the big changes, changes of the systems, changes of the, let's say, crucial solutions. So definitely, based on my experience, I think I was involved 2 times or 3 times in the benchmark, and it was always very helpful. But we always need to think about the scale of the change we are trying to do within the company. So yeah, my experience is always very positive, that such benchmark is very helpful to make sure that the solution which we are selecting is the world class or close to the world class. Let's say, thinking also about the costs we should involve in the change.
All right, thank you, Jacek. And some people are saying the main challenge today is, well, simply no capacity beyond myself. And we have also here the questions: is the GPO one-man show? We try to address it as a function, but do you have similar challenges at your end? With capacity, whether on the delivery side, I mean, improvement resources at the GBS or at the operations, or project capabilities to drive the things. How
I think that it's more understanding of the role, right? And how and we touched, if you were showing the slides and explaining that how GPO is positioned in the organization, how it is understood as a role. So yes, I mean, if you are on daily basis involved in escalations on operations, and this is something that is not a design flaw, it's just simply someone in the process failed, right? Well, maybe you have to investigate if you have the right metrics, if you have the right controls and the quality checks. But by principle, if you're involved in this kind of operational discussions, then obviously it becomes a challenge from the capacity. But I think that, in many companies, my experience was quite often that it was a sort of a one-man show with or without a supporting team. Today, I have to say that even in AVON, I started as a one-man show. Today, I'm supported with a wider team, so I was able to influence my bosses that a team, a support between PMO, SMEs is really critical to enable these kind of changes, to build this capacity in my role to think about the future, think about the strategy. So I think it really comes down to how the role is positioned. And today there is a lot of challenges on understanding what is the GPO role, and I think that's very good that we have this discussion today. But if we are involved if we are getting involved in not the right areas or something that we should not do, then obviously it creates capacity challenges.
Yeah, so maybe I will also ask Alex, how long you are in the role within your company?
It's almost 3 years.
3 years.
It's almost 3 years. So yeah, the beginnings were quite different. I mean, the role. We actually decided. I was brought because we had a challenge, as I was saying in the beginning, and we started from a more tactical role that had to support the transition. We were doing a reverse transition from one external partner to another, so just making sure that everything is in place. And then along those 3 years, we were able to mature into a role that is much more, forward thinking, although that transformational piece is still very important to me, right? So I have this accountability and the transformational responsibility in the process as well. So even though I do the strategic stuff, it's still a lot around transformation.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking, because I have the same experience actually at the beginning, because the role was established actually at the same time when we started with SSC. So at the beginning it was, as it was mentioned, one-man show and really close cooperation with SSC, more, let's say, focus on the designing, even sometimes detailed processes. Now definitely we have these supporting teams. So we have Center of Excellence, for example, for SSC, but also for let's say driving the changes within the IT setups, and also the supporting functions within the local teams. So it's much more easier to focus on the core work related to the GPO role. So I am here actually personally only 1 year, almost 2 years. So looking forward for the next year, probably we'll have we'll more focus on the core GPO activities. So,
yeah, I think it really comes down to the organization, right? What is this level of maturity of the shared service or a GBS, right? And what is the current need? But yeah, I think that's, it's also depends on us how we drive this conversation.
So we are talking a lot about supporting functions and also areas of difficulties, and what we started with is the transformation, and this also translates into simply driving the change through the whole organization. So could you maybe share your experiences, how you are tackling the change management in your companies?
On top of the positioning and I suppose the governance that you have, yeah.
So maybe I'll give a few words. I mean, the change management, at least for P2P, and I touched a little bit, is huge, right? I mean, we have so many different stakeholders that we have to manage. So it's one thing is to drive this, you know, as I was mentioning, bringing those stakeholders onto a journey, trying them to understand what is the reality of the process, how they can help. Obviously, there is a change management from a project perspective, but to enable that, I think that the most important is this governance. So setting up the right governance from the beginning with the stakeholders that are important to you, and that's why I was saying that to me, this stakeholder mapping is very important. It's one of the tools that we use very often if we have any new projects or we want to redesign anything, we go back to that document, we make sure that it's updated, and we keep on referencing us to the thinking that we have around this stakeholder mapping, which enables us to drive the right governance, right? To have the steerco with the right stakeholders, that they are aligned on on the vision and how we drive that. We have the governance with the operational teams, so that we are being fed all of the ideas and the pain points and continuous improvement ideas, everything that we should change in the process, but we also feed all of the transformational, more high-level things that are being done on a company level. So yeah, governance, I think, is also a key enabler for a GPO function, because it's also, as you mentioned, how we position how GPO is positioned in the company. It's also our role to build that understanding, right? So having this right governance with the right stakeholders builds their understanding of what GPO is and showcases the value, right? Because we are able to directly talk to them how we will bring value to the company, because we are very often challenged sometimes when it's not visible what a GPO does, what is actually the value that GPO brings. And I think that's the forum where we can show that.
Yeah, and I think this is very interesting story, and the point of view that obviously many of us in the GPO roles are starting as a single position, or are being just introduced a bit as an owner of the change. Hence, the organization or change management in general topic related to the change of the process and related to the change of the business and the GPO role in that change management is most probably a very good idea for the next webinar around the GPO or next phase of knowledge that could be shared, which we would definitely think of. From that perspective of having the individual role first, then obviously using your GBS in the support in the early phase of the support of this model of creating the frameworks, introducing them to the larger gremium, training people on this. Much easier if you have the GBS or centralized function, because you immediately can secure some portion of resources to support this activity of the GPO, of this responsibility. At the same time, you can obviously try to build it from scratch as the GPO organization, or simply try to use some of the free or some of the powerful resources to help you. I still remember the early phase of the GPO, and one of the organizations I worked for, they had like 5 business divisions, and every of that division had its own idea for the process owner. And then at the end we had 5 process owners for one domain. And what is next? This group was also supported by the kind of business improvement team, so implementation team that was bridging them into GBS or shared service at that time, and another group of at least 4 to 5 IT heads that were supporting that kind of governance, but also playing themselves in the role of the GPO or decision maker there, as majority of the transformations were touching the IT budgets or IT, let's say, investments at that time. So at the end, you had for very simple, well, not very simple, but you had for one single P2P process, actually 5 owners from the business divisions, 5 owners from IT, and another group of also idea generators and execution guys created around this business improvement group. And that brings also the perspective of the complexity that you can face in your organization, especially in the early stage. And obviously you can say that some of this I can take from GBS, some of this I can take from external advisor, some of those activities I must still plug in my IT stakeholders, and only then I will have effective governance going forward, and also resources to do things, not only to think about them, but also to provide the fact-based value to my stakeholders later on. Enablers for tomorrow. Maybe we would start. Or we would continue actually now with Aleksandra to give us a couple of hints that we can again streamline the discussions or the questions around.
Yes, so just to sum up the challenges that we already discussed, we have grouped those into 5 dimensions, like you see the governance, scope, goals, technology and budget. And quite a lot of things have been already mentioned. So like the governance, so not really the proper empowerment of GPO role. The responsiveness, very poor of the stakeholders and their poor commitment. So local business does not follow GPO recommendation. There is a very poor cross-functional alignment and not effective change management model, which was also a part of our discussion. For scope, not really the definition of GPO, limited visibility over end-to-end process flow, and weak business readiness and process maturity. For goals, a little bit like a conflict, right, between the strategic goals and GPO goals, and also not aligned with the local business. Too deep in day-to-day operations issues. That's also another risk that might take place. For the budget, apparently no budget for the GPO function planned at all. Implementation investment to be assigned to whom, actually. So there is no really a clear and strong sponsorship in the organization, or no budget for process improvements or change management at all. Technology, different platforms for different regions or functions. So long resolution of IT issues. This is just that GPO is struggling. So it's like a long queue of the resolution, and GPO is waiting for his turn, right? So it should be prioritized. It should be like the fast track, especially procedure dedicated to GPO, so that it doesn't take so much time. And also not always clarity on the direction in the technology, right? A journey, so integration or implementation. So but if we can respond to that, what was already also said today, quite a lot of things, but we would like to paraphrase that and also remind you with that inspiration and also remind that after the webinar. We have grouped that into two levels. One level, depending also on the maturity that your organization has, we have enablers, so absolutely must have hygienic factors. And this is also split into those 5 dimensions, like governance, scope, communication, budget, technology, and metrics. So 6, I'm sorry. So if I may just like really highlight the most critical ones. So absolutely regular executive steering group meetings with GPO. So there's empowerment of GPO role and strong establishment in the organization. This is absolutely to do by the senior management, I would say. It's going from the top to the bottom. So the definition of the responsibilities of GPO should be also communicated clearly to all stakeholders, with this empowerment, of course, attached. Designed effective organization change management model. So the whole communication package should be actually defined with buy-ins and also with the mapping of ambassadors that will guide this change model, will actually drive this change together with GPO, so that we avoid the situation that we have one-man show in the organization. Stakeholders availability and commitment, so that GPO is actually addressing who they need, actually, right? Who they need, and then by that, this availability and commitment is dedicated. From the metrics, it's a little bit like with the scope, with the performance measurement. So clearly defined effective performance metrics framework. This is also very important, success factor and hygienic one. Process taxonomy as a basic, as a starting point for next phases of the process improvement. Designed streamlined end-to-end process flow, of course. Process readiness assessment for centralization, if was not done yet. Introduce documentation repository framework, that was also mentioned by Robert, but very important. Technology mapping landscape with the assessment of the capabilities and potential for integration, and absolutely budget availability for the process changes. And if we can go to accelerators, because this is just our expected phase that we would like to reach, right? Because every organization would like to really reach the top and be ready for future. So that's why we call that accelerators, and it should guide you, it should lead you to the digital transformation era. So absolutely the industry networking which should be built. So GPO should have actually access to market trends, to benchmark. This is also in the cooperation with Center of Excellence, that that department should also provide such expertise to GPO additionally. Establish communication platform for knowledge and best practice sharing. And the mindset about the KPIs and about the performance metrics management, so that we compare ourselves. We are now not look only internally, but we constantly compare and contrast ourselves with what is going on external in the external environment, and we automate reporting system setup. So we look also whether either our KPIs really give us the value-added information about our performance. If we have what kind of lagging, which are really, well, what are the business key drivers behind, that really should guide us to achieve more on the market. Assessment of potential process centralization expansion, if we still have such. Digital transformation roadmap is absolutely the product that should exist in the organization with the assessment of our automation potentials. So to really build the business case, and GPO absolutely should be in charge of that, together with the proper mapped stakeholders and supporting functions, to really design transformation roadmap and with the whole initiatives, improvement initiatives. And this business case should be absolutely, with the budget availability, approved by senior management. And take also into this consideration, once building the business case, either you just simply use your already onboarded solutions, or you simply would like to select some vendor systems, right? So, but it should be also a part of the costs and benefits included. So quite comprehensive, I believe, and a lot of things to do.
Ola, thank you for this. Robert, if we can come back maybe, because now I monitor a bit the questions from the audience. And one comes to me also quite obviously, even not talking about accelerators yet, but initially being enablers still. Especially as we have seen many of the GPOs are being recruited and maybe even positioned today with shared service or within GBS. They may say, or one can raise the question, what if there is no senior leadership focus? And then what if we have no significant budgets secured, no matter whether this is within the GBS or within the function or within the executive level? What then? What can we do? How shall we operate? And obviously, we can come back initially with the answer to what is the strategic role of the GPO, GBS going forward, whether it's really assisting and guarding the process execution and process compliance, or is it really leading or driving the change? Because if this is about the change, then obviously looking at the market, but also having the focus from the CX level of steering senior is obvious, because if not, then obviously GPO must focus on the bottom-up initiatives way more, must focus on the SLA harmonizations, frameworks rather than external tools, and cross-country, cross-departmental harmonization ideas rather than external benchmarks. But on the other hand, how you guys would see that in the form, if you don't have strong support from the top down, how would you, or maybe you don't have. So I'm quite happy to hear your views, Alex, Jacek.
You want to start, Jacek, or?
You have strong top-down support or not?
Myself, I'm actually quite fortunate that it's the support is quite strong, but it was not there at the very beginning. Right? It's something that was built up. So I think that if you have these kind of challenges, as you're saying, Krystian, there is no other way but to turn more tactical and start delivering some of the even small initiatives. There is a lot of things that we can do on a much smaller scale, smaller level, with some, with small teams, isolated processes, which doesn't require a lot of investment. And I think that if we are able to showcase those small values that we are bringing, it should turn the attention to a GPO role, that, and it should get more attention from senior stakeholders, that there is the role which is an enabler. So if we are able to bring benefits on such a small scale with no budget or very small budget, then what would happen if we actually gave a much wider budget and enabled the person or the GPO role to be much more strategical? So I think that there is no, I don't have a solution myself. For me, it was just this groundwork of working with different stakeholders, trying to push some small things and sort of building up to a different role.
Yeah, thank you for this. I also remember my times in one of the organizations that actually we had no budgets for a couple of years' time, and indeed we're looking very much into operations or operational bottom-up ideas, and it ended up that actually roughly 90% of the GPO agenda, management agenda, or just focus agenda was created by the bottom-up initiatives, different Kaizens, process reengineering changes, standardization or harmonization, or technology elements that are very cheap or limited investments required, and that was quite also intense from one end, but from the other hand, it was quite easy to show the value then from those small things on the small scale, but indeed to transfer it into, hey, give me the wider scale, give me some funds, then I can provide the similar one on the large one. Jacek, your views, maybe also on enablers for the future, if you are missing some of them, and what then?
I think, as it was already mentioned, the governance on the top is crucial. I think we've been succeed during the last couple of months with the projects that we have implemented. For example, this fast close, there was a clear message from the top that we should implement. Of course, there was a lot of voices from the business that they will not comply because it required a lot of important changes, for example, to stop AR invoices on the specific day, but there was a clear message from the top, yes, and that was, I think, a very important factor to succeed. Yes, of course there was some challenges at the beginning, but finally we succeed with the project. So I think I am also quite fortunate that I have a strong mandate from the top to implement the changes. So there was one voice, and even there was quite challenging project. We finally succeed. So I think I would like to enhance that this strong governance and mandate from the top is crucial.
Yep. Okay, if we can move to accelerators, Robert, maybe over there. We are gradually moving to the Q&A session, and then still many of you can raise the question: what if, again, I don't have this and that in my, well, either scope or budgets? I think we have the first interesting question, like a sum up a bit of this from Piotr. What proves GPO successful? Any KPI, or any performance elements, or simply cost, or maybe better say savings denominator is the matter of success? And I think I would just leave the floors to you guys. What proves your success in your organization, in your views, Alex?
I think that at the end, the GPO role is very much about bringing the value and bringing the savings. I think that's probably on all of our targets. So that definitely is also my case. So year on year, I have to deliver a certain productivity, certain efficiencies in the process. We are not there yet where we would, constantly benchmark ourselves on the cost of an invoice and these kind of metrics. We are very much focused on FTEs, on how big our team is and how efficient. So that's the main driver of our say performance today. We want to move to a better understanding of this kind of outcome metrics, which is something that is more relatable for our senior stakeholders, right? When they see what is the actual cost of the AP function that they are having versus the benchmarks, etc. So this is something that we are actually right now starting to develop. But yes, it's very much around the productivity and how efficient we are within the process at the end. Obviously, there are some projects, something that we need to improve, some key metrics. So I was mentioning that paid on time, it's actually important, very important to us. But at the end, yeah, the productivity and efficiency is crucial.
Yeah, exactly. In principle, this is alignment to our strategy and vision. Of course, on a yearly basis, we have clear targets in regards to, at least for me, in regards to the documentation, to the global projects. So we are also driving those projects, working on the change management. But of course, as Alex mentioned, maybe for the R2R, it is not maybe clearly stated the productivity, because the specific is quite different comparing to the transactional activities. But still, yeah, the goal was in overall to speed up the closing process, to provide the data for the consolidation. We succeed, so I think this is quite clear for this year. Let's see what will happen the next year, but still a lot of challenges related to the reporting phase. So yeah, so that will be a driver of the change for the next couple of months or even a whole year.
Thank you, guys. I think bringing savings is nothing unexpected. We can also say that for many of our clients, we see the element that indeed the only focus is around the FTEs. With all the experiences, also former in the last several years, with value stream mapping, what is the cost per invoice, what is the cost of the certain step of the process. At the end of the day, many of the companies are seeing, hey, we see business is not very much growing, GBS is growing, and our total cost is also growing, although we expected this to drop. And it's very nice that we all look in this nice approaches, and we spend a number of dollars for analysis, or number of time efforts for analysis and conclusions. But at the end, we want to see the real drop in the costs, and probably a bit extended question to the initial one. How do you measure this? I mean, how do you measure, Alex, you delivered savings? Or is it like a measurement is being done by you? Is it like per project or per initiative maybe? Or is it at the total bottom line level? Hey, GBS is saying, or maybe different process delivery is less by number of people, and that's what matters.
Yeah. So we have, and I guess it's most of the cases, we have an overall business case for the GBS as a function, right? So, and within that we have certain assumptions that we will deliver year on year, again coming back to FTEs. So for me, it's really the FTEs that are coming. So I am being measured on how much FTEs year on year I was able to deliver, which of course, it's not something that I just take of thin air, right? It's the projects that are all of the initiatives, RPAs, continuous improvements, the transformational projects. All of them are part of that, say, framework of productivity, of bringing efficiencies in the process. And at the end, this is how we measure. So target and how we have delivered against this target.
Yeah, the same. Thank you. The same question to Jacek, maybe a bit extended. Do you have a full freedom in selection of your priorities? Not only talking about the measurements and effective measurements.
Maybe not full freedom, but of course I initiate the topics, the priorities for the next period, and then of course I need to align with the top management. This is for sure. And referring to the previous topic, how we measure, of course, FTE. This is obvious, but also net sales. So to compare to the overall performance of the business. So we need to make sure that the percentage is still less comparing to the previous years. So this is also one additional metric how we measure our performance.
Mm-hmm. I assume that the measurement of impact of your earlier mentioned fast close is difficult to just say, hey,
for sure,
savings in the man hours and the efforts that we are squeezing now, and not prolonging, not opening the books again and closing and so on.
Exactly.
It's a more tough and more regime implemented that brings the efficiencies. But except for this, it's difficult to adjust the direct, or to simply evaluate the direct impact on money side. Again, still, are there any other tricks you would want to give to our community with regard to measurement or definition of the success and the way how to sell it internally?
I think we still think about not only about the quantitative elements but also qualitative elements. Yeah, so thinking again about the R2R. Definitely, it's not only about the cost, but also about the quality, about the number of errors, about the corrections which we need to consider. So definitely we need to consider both elements when thinking about the measurement, about our results on the regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fully agree. The quality is often overseen. I mean, it's something that we overlook, and it's very often missed. So yeah, the quality is very important. I agree.
All right, Robert, Ola, do you have anything to add? Do we have any extra questions from the audience? I think I tried to address almost everything, maybe except individual ones, looking at the potential platforms for knowledge retention or some explanations how to improve the process delivery. I think we'll come back to those questions individually after this session.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think that what we can summarize, let's say, a lot of things which were said, and this where we started, and what right now in the enablers and accelerators, both Jacek and Alex were saying that if there is a proper mandate in the organization, then you can be successful in your GPO role. And then we can say that it might be also translated that you can be successful in your GPO role, and also to be blunt in the statement, the GPO role is meaningful only then when there is a clear vision of the organization to transform, and really to look into the future from the transformational perspective. If the organization will just only stop within the first, centralization into shared service center, only standard accounts payable transactional process, and is not looking into the future that some more transformation should take place, some more centralization, then it will be a really hard time for a GPO in such organization.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Robert. Anything from your end?
Yeah, as Robert said, I believe that with the proper governance model and communication, effective communication, it might turn out that quite a lot of things you have, quite a lot of good ideas you have already within your organization, but it's just like that from the bottom to the top and the other way around. So that's also the role of GPO, that should link and ensure the flow. Yes. So it doesn't have to cost much, right? Let's start with ourselves and try to map what we have, because it might turn out that we have quite a lot of good examples and best practices already within the organization.
Right, then thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, dear audience. I think we have a concluding quote from one of the audience members to create the GPO group and exchange the best practices, whether on LinkedIn or Teams or other apps. So definitely we will come back to that idea, Monica, thanks to this. And indeed, there are some groups on LinkedIn that are more global and not probably giving any kind of detailed insights, where we can definitely explore. And we will, as Adaptive, explore this session into probably the next phase. And as I mentioned, one of the topics considered already would be change management in the implementation phase of our process changes. But we'll come back on this group. I think we have your details registered in the tool, so we would create it for the knowledge sharing in one or the other selected platforms, and invite you very quickly to this one to share your views and to raise the questions. For now, thank you very much, and hope to speak to you soon, or maybe even hope to see you soon in person in the one or the other next event. For now, also Merry Christmas from Adaptive, and hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
Happy Christmas.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.